Welcome to Accelerate Your Wealth, a podcast by Rebecca Robertson, founder and director of Evolution Financial Planning. This series, we're focusing on female financial independence, looking towards a stronger financial future. Be sure to let us know your thoughts on the show, and please do connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn or Instagram, or head over to www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk.
Hey, and welcome to this week's show. So how to overcome your subconscious blocks to sell more. We're going to be talking to CEO of Sheree Owen, sales strategist, business coach and sales expert, co-founder of Business Spa Escapes and My Wellbeing Business Coaching. With over 25 years creating and launching business myself, or herself in this case, she supports people taking their first business sales and steps with confidence. Also working with established and business entrepreneurs and business leaders seeking more impact, income and influence. As an authentic selling expert, she helps clients develop their key strategies and skills so that selling with integrity is the foundation of their approach and their business growth. Let's get chatting to Cherie about sales. Welcome, Cherie. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm good, thanks. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah.
Good. We did the typical British thing before we started and started talking about the weather, but it is particularly warm at the moment. But why do we always talk about the weather, eh? What's that about?
Whenever I start a Zoom call with, when I'm running a program, I do a coaching call. Doesn't matter what I do, I nearly always talk about the weather. It's just weird, isn't it? We've got this obsession. We really have. We
have. I think it affects our mood so much as well. I know, like last week, I was very up and down because one minute it was raining and the next minute it was sunshine again. I felt very up and down last week. But not what we're going to be talking about today, right? We're going to be talking about subconscious blocks and allowing you to sell more. And particularly what I liked in your bio is about you help people find their authentic selling voice. And tap into the best way to build relationships and win business for your ideal clients. And the reason I like that is, okay, what's that got to do with money? Well, as a business owner, if that's what you're doing, or if you're in an employed role even, and you're having to sell something, you're either having to sell another company or sell yourself or sell a product for your own business, whichever way you look at it. I think understanding your own personality, and you talk about the power of your personality and understanding your authentic selling voice is a great thing, right? But why has sales got such a bad reputation, do you think?
I think there's a number of reasons why it has. And strangely enough, I was talking to somebody else this morning about that. She's a content writer, actually helps people on LinkedIn. We were talking about, why does sales have such a bad rap? I think it's the word sales and what people understand when they hear the word of sales. They think, oh, sales, automatically it's almost an image of a Del Boy type trader. Del Boy type trader, or somebody that's a dodgy estate agent, and invariably also takes their mind back 20 years to when salespeople might have been like that. But the modern day salesperson, the modern day entrepreneur, the modern sales professional, they might have to work in particularly sales professionals might have to work in a specific particular way because they're employed by a company. But sales in business doesn't have to be like that at all.
No, totally. I mean, I used to work in a bank years and years ago, as you could probably imagine I did. And we had sales targets and but we were never told off, if you like, like, why didn't you sell to everybody? There'd be sort of, as long as you were having conversations with people, generally speaking, and you were confident enough and you knew how to talk to people, I never really had an issue personally. I always met my targets because they weren't unrealistic and they weren't unreasonable. But I did work for one particular firm, and actually why I started my business is because they were micromanaging and their expectations were almost sell to everyone regardless. And what they was expecting us to sell and how to sell to people was just unreasonable, even in a regulated environment, right? You'd think that wouldn't be happening, but it does. And even though the clients didn't have a need for what it was, it didn't feel authentic for me to offering. And I think that's a really important point, is that, I worked for a bank in financial services, but I was just having conversations with people and I was offering them a service and it worked fine. to another environment, same industry, but different setup. And although I felt like I was doing a good job, the expectations for the results that I was going to get was not that of the owner of the business. And they just, their environment was very different. And I suppose that goes across whatever the company, whatever the business, whatever the scenario. It just where the core of the sales and the environment, come from, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think thing is, I mean, if someone doesn't believe in what they're selling, they can't sell it. So you cannot sell something you don't believe in. When people are trying to sell something they don't believe in, that's where the old style pushy sales professional turns up, because that's where that approach comes from, where people are employed and they've got targets and they've got pressure to hit a sales target. So then they have to do all these things that realistically they actually probably don't want to do, and they're forcing themselves to do. They don't believe in what they're doing, and that comes across in their style anyway. Of course, they don't make sales, and they become a bad pushy type of salesperson.
It doesn't become authentic, doesn't it? I mean, I almost cringe at people trying to sell to me. I almost rebel it. I don't know about you, but if you go and walk around and someone, you can tell, can't you, when you're all right there, do you need a hand? You're all right. I'm like, no, go away, not interested. They haven't even said anything terrible, but straight away I'm like, no. And I guess it's our expectations these days. I'm not saying that, everyone's going to be trying to sell to me nastily. But I guess it comes back down to that element of serving the person and say, well, even though the person might even just say, how can I help? Am I sort of, what's the right word? I don't know, old Grinch version in my head, maybe.
I think there's different ways of selling. It depends where the environment that you're in. If you're an online entrepreneur or a service-based entrepreneur, then the way that you sell now is going to be very different to being a customer-facing sales person. So customer-facing sales scenarios are very different to what we call online sales environments.
Oh gosh, yeah, very good point. Yeah, such different environments. I mean, do you think that I see a lot of women struggling with selling themselves? Do you think that's one of the problems with the online space, is that they are having, and business owners particularly, where they are having to basically sell themselves? And if they're not feeling great about themselves, then they're going to struggle with that, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the first things I actually do, my approach is all around business owners selling their business, not for themselves.
Okay.
Ever try and sell yourself. Because when you try and sell yourself, if people don't buy, then you are going to feel that you've failed, that that there is some lack in you, and that's where the not worthiness. And this is what drives me nuts about what I see online is, you put a post out there this morning about this, but about valuing yourself around, what you are able to sell. When you have a business, your approach needs to be service selling. So you are selling the services or products of your business. So if you're selling products, a mix of products and services like yourself, or, I have a client that makes wonderful jewellery. So she is literally selling her products, which are amazing. Then obviously service-based entrepreneurs are selling the services that they offer. They are the deliverer of the services, most of them, but they are not that's how I tend to
try and approach it. But I hear what you're saying, but don't people buy people?
Yeah, they do. People buy people. So that's where your authentic selling style comes in.
Okay, got it. Okay, so what would that look like for you? Like, what does that look like, being authentic?
Oh, what it looks like is people buy people. So they need to get to know you. The problem with most service-based business owners is they are the business and the deliverer. They are selling the service and they are delivering the service. When you work for an organisation, like you were talking about banks and whatever, you are selling the service of the bank, but you're not delivering it. So when you're a small business owner, you're selling the service and being the deliverer. So you've got to step into what I call two different mindsets. So there's your authentic selling voice, which is you. So people buy people and then what they're selling. So that's around understanding what your strengths are as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, in what you offer and how you communicate that with your prospective ideal clients, all the clients. And then when you come to a point in sales conversations where it is, you need to do what we call close the sale, then that's the point at which you need to step into what I call your stretch zone of your personal profile. So with the authentic selling approach that I recommend, you develop the relationship being yourself with some structures and boundaries around it. You have to have structures and boundaries around selling. If you don't have those, you're going to fail. Because if you don't have the structures and boundaries and systems around selling in the online world, you're going to let stuff fall through the cracks and you won't make enough money.
Yeah.
You won't have that consistency. But what people learn from me is how to then step into what we call the closing zone of sales. And that is not their natural strength as an entrepreneur and a business owner that's never worked in the sales field. So they learn how to do that by learning different behaviors and practicing those until they become more confident at it and it becomes more natural. And then they start to sell more, and then they've got their own sales system and processes in place.
So what's the biggest blocks to get people to do that stretching or to even to sell in the first place?
The biggest block there is often, I often work with what we might call heart-led entrepreneurs. Yeah. So heart-led entrepreneurs tend to really want to give as much as they can without having to ask for any money. Yeah. They want people to ask them for the money. So, ask them to work with them. Yeah. Yeah. So they're waiting for you to say, oh, do you think I could sign up?
How can I buy? Where can I sign up? Yeah.
Yeah. And then if they are, of the mind where they want to keep giving and giving and giving, they aren't asking. They don't ask, so they don't get because they're not asking. And I'm not sure, I've gone off your question.
No,
really.
As biggest block, which you're on, which you're talking about.
The biggest block.
Don't know how to ask.
Biggest block really tends to be asking for the sale. Actually asking for it, saying, okay, well, that's great, Rebecca. It's been really lovely talking to you about, where you're at. So what I'm wondering is whether, this is the right program for you. How would you feel about signing up? And that's what they don't do.
No.
So it's simple. It's the simple. So, so it's teaching people to overcome that block of asking for money.
What stops them wanting to ask? Like what is it? Fear, rejection? Is it their own self-worth, or is it all the above?
A lot of it, I think, is a fear around it's fear around rejection, hearing no, not wanting to hear the no. So presupposing someone might say no, or also feeling a little bit like asking for money is not a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, because at the point where you're asking for the sale, you're asking for money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying, do you want this? This is what I'm offering. Do you want it? And at that point, people feel like they're really putting themselves on show. Yeah. So whereas if we think of it as being a package or a product, this is why I teach people to sell outside of themselves, selling the product. So anything that you sell it outside of yourself, which dissociates you from it feeling like I'm asking for money for you.
But do you think that that's just down to like a typical British society where, asking for money and talking about money can be a bit of a dirty subject, or do you think it's more down to their own personal self-worth?
I think it's women. It's women. I've been working with women in the States recently, and believe it or not, they're on a program helping people to make more money, and they can't ask for sales.
And that's a crucial part, right, of making more money, right?
It's a really interesting one. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what is going on here? This is weird. I think it is more around that there's some old antiquated beliefs, values, mindsets around women stroke money. If you go back to go back 30, 40 years, lots of women in business aren't really in business to make money. If you go back to if you read something called the Rose Report, it talks a lot about, in the 1950s and 60s, how women wanted to make pin money.
Yeah.
That's the phrase, pin money. Lots of people that have a business now, or whether you want to call it a freelance, independent, whatever, are making the equivalent of the 1950s in the
pin money. Yeah.
Pin money. So that's number one. So they're not, they're not bothered about art. They don't want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're not interested. They want to make extra money.
Yeah.
It depends. If someone is, I'm hearing more people now more motivated to make more money because of the cost of living rising and everything. So I'm hearing more and more people saying, I do want to make more money. Whereas before they say, I want to do this because I love what I'm doing. I want to be successful because I'm passionate. So I want to help people. So it's all the helping that a lot of women in the online space are helpers.
Yeah.
They're therapists, they're coaches, they're nurturers.
Yeah, I think there's a big gap between, I think, doing what we need to do to get by and then being aspirational to want to achieve more in life.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, if you're not selling, then you can't really make money. And if you can't make money, you haven't got a turnover. And if you haven't got turnover, then you haven't got a profit. And then if you haven't got profits, you can't pay yourself. So it does all come back to the sale element. And I think we're taught so much in the online space about social media and email lists and funnels and marketing, and people forget then they do all the marketing stuff and then they don't actually do the sales stuff. And I think because we're so much in a very much an automated world, then people assume that people will just buy. They would just buy by doing lots of marketing and putting something out there, and actually there's no selling involved. And I think there's a real psychology around selling. And I used to be a regional sales manager for a financial services business. I was the top sales manager in the company. I was 28. I had the largest and most successful team out of a team of all other men. And for me, sales is not, it's like if I said I was a marketing manager, you wouldn't have a problem with it. If I say I'm a sales manager, like you said, there's certain connotations to it. But I used to look after marketing and sales and everything else in between, which basically was client delivery and making sure that the whole process was seamless for the client, because then you get testimonials, which increase your sales. So sales is like a whole journey of a process, right? It's not just that initial sale, it's the ongoing process of a client's environment and what you're delivering for them. Okay, you could argue that's operational manager as well, but sales does affect each part. It affects marketing, it affects operational. And what I noticed the most was that the difference between, it was all about confidence. You could have the most intelligent, the most qualified, the most technically knowledgeable person in the room. But at the end of the day, if they went into a client's house or they was on the phone to somebody and they couldn't relate to them or they couldn't talk to them and it wasn't authentic and it didn't feel nice, you didn't get referrals, you didn't get recommendations, and it wasn't as easy. Whereas I had one guy, his name was Paul, and he's such a character. He was lovely, this big guy, and everybody loved Paul. And he wasn't the most technically able, but he was very good at what he does, and he looked after the client. And I think what I'm going to come on to now to talk to you about is understanding that personality type and where you might sit. So we've talked about the picture behind you, and those that are on the podcast you won't be able to see, but behind Cherie, she's got a picture and she's going to talk through this particular profile. So it's got a red, a yellow, green and blue squares in a larger square. So there's sort of different corners. And Cherie, would you like to share a little bit about this personality and people can then resonate where they might sit within it?
Yeah. And basically, I mean, color profiling is not, color profiling has been around for a long, long time. And like yourself, I led multiple sales teams myself. So I started personality profiling over 20 years ago when I first had run one of my first leadership and management executive coaching consultancies. And then when I entered the world of sales, and I used to be in customer service many, many years ago. So I learned to sell through customer service. So my first sort of career level wasn't anything to do with sales. It was all around customer service, but high-end customer service. And of course, that's the essence of selling. High-end customer service. So when I ended up in, residential sales management leadership, I had a lot of sales professionals I needed to train, and I needed to train them fairly quickly. And colour profiling was one of the easiest ways to train them. So you've got 4 colours in the profiling mix, and this profile relates to anybody listening. If you've heard of Myers-Briggs type indicator, insights, extended disc, all of the disc family. The profile tool I'm talking about now is called Clarity 4D, and that is modelled on the same paper that Carl Jung wrote in the 1920s. All the major personality profiles are mapped out on the same lines. But typically, where we're identifying ourselves or each other as different colour energies, we all have all the different colours within us: red, yellow, green, blue. But the 4 colours I'm talking about, red and yellow are extroverted, what we call extroverted colour energies. So in terms of selling, there are certain sales activities where we need to use the extroverted colour energies, yellow and red. Red is all around strategy, leadership, being passionate, being focused, being assertive, really loving talking about what you do. Think CEOs, think action takers. Yellow is all around being excited, being enthusiastic about what you do. Yellow energy tends to be, yellow energy in a salesperson, in using it in business, tends to be when you're networking, when you're connecting with others, you're out there being visible, you're speaking on a stage, you're doing podcasts, you're doing interviews, that kind of thing. And then we've got the other 2 colours, which are green and blue. Now, the green and blue colour energies are more on the introverted side of personality. Now, it doesn't mean a person is introverted or extroverted. It means the tendency that is there to be behaving that way. And it's harder in terms of selling. It's harder for people that are naturally shyer to, of course, be more extroverted when they need to do sales activities like following people up on the phone, being visible on social media with social selling now, and instigating conversations, which reds and yellows will do like that. So it's harder for the more introverted personality which is the blue. That's the most introverted personality type. And the green is a more caring type of behavior, if you like. That's all around empathy, understanding, being patient, being empathetic. And whereas the blue is really, really more around detail, wanting to talk about detail, need to understand about detail. They're slower, they're more exacting, tend to be accountants, tend to be solicitors, tend to be in IT, that kind of thing. So the 4 colours are it's really, really important. If you get this, and the clients that work with me get it, once they've got it, they understand how to sell more.
And I think people intuitively will know really which one they're going to fit into, right? As you're talking through those. And it doesn't mean to say, like, I think I'm red.
Recognise which one you do fit into. Yeah. However, for example, I've got people that I was talking about this morning to somebody else. I've got people who've been working with me a couple of years now, on and off, not necessarily continually. But, you can adjust your behaviours. So if you know that you need, for example, if someone's high in what we call green energy, they are the overgivers of this world. They need to put boundaries around their time, around their free time, and they need to step into the red zone to make sure that they take consistent action towards moving someone towards a point where they can get the sale, as it were. Yeah. And it just takes time to sort of get to understand actually what your strengths are, and then how to use what we call your hidden potential. And in your opposite, whatever colour you are on those, within those 4 colours, you'll have an opposite, and the opposite colour is where the biggest stretch is. Right. And you won't know that necessarily particularly well. So you can do all these online profiles that don't cost you anything, and click a button and they're not going to tell you anything, because it's not a robust psychometric instrument like a true profile.
Okay, it sounds similar to what used to be wealth dynamics, and it's now called talent dynamics.
Yeah, I've done that.
And I took one, I don't know, 2 months ago, and then I took another one 2.5 years ago. And I was different both times, but the first time I did it, I was 24, and then 26% point something. So I was like all 4, and that's because it talks about a lord and a
you'll be a mechanic, lord or mechanic.
Yeah, it was talking about, but I was doing a lot more of the analytical detail stuff, and so I tended to be at the 26% was in there. But then when I took it more recently, I've started to step into the stuff that I enjoy more, which is more creative, and doing less of the technical stuff. I've got someone sort of come in and help me with some of that, and I'm now much more in the red corner, you would call it, and I think they call that corner like the star, and something else. But we're talking about it in the context of, I mean, I took it for the context of how you operate in your business and what role you do in your business. But most people I know should be doing sales in their business, regardless of where they sit. So what you're describing is, I mean, it doesn't mean to say I'm not a green and I'm not an empathic person or I'm not an understanding person. It doesn't mean that. It just means that if anything, I can recognize when someone else is struggling, and I'm able to, rather than go, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it, let's forget about it. From a sales perspective, I can go, okay, and I can challenge the person and say, okay, what do you need to overcome this? What do you need for us to, for this to move forward? What is it that needs to happen for you to be able to take the next step? Whereas somebody that's in a more green, empathetic position might not feel comfortable with that challenge. Am I right in that statement, do you think?
I don't think there's any right. Well, I mean, I think the thing is, when you're personality profiling can help anybody grow their business, and what you've just said is, like, you looked at it because you wanted to look at where the strengths and weaknesses were in your approach and who you needed to bring in, which is the perfect way to do it. And that's, again, the individual that's working in an online business nowadays, most people have a VA, don't they? They have somebody to come in and support them, to help them with certain things. Lots and lots of entrepreneurs, it's the back end stuff, the tech stuff. Now, all the back end tech stuff is blue. Is the blue corner. So if you are a yellow, it's your opposite, and you've got very little blue, and I see that a lot. That's where people struggle, because they can't work out how to get the systems up and running, and they think they've got to do all this fancy funneling and all this, that, and the other. And sometimes it's just as simple, actually, as creating a brochure, sending it to some people, making some phone calls, doing fashion things.
Old-fashioned stuff works.
A lot of old-fashioned, I'm a massive fan of a mix between traditional sales technique, traditional sales and systems, and then obviously modern day sales systems.
Totally agree.
So you've got to have optimized, you've got to have a good funnel. I mean, and when I do talk about funnel mapping, I'm talking about simple funnel mapping, but you've got to have that. If you don't have that, you're lost today. You must know where you're leading people. You must have something to capture your audience, a way to bring them down, and a way to nurture them, and then convert them. And you need to know what your sales life cycle is generally. I mean, I'd say today for the average person, it's at least 6 months to get in a new client.
I think some people are, for me, some people are a bit quicker than that. But usually that's because they've got an instant need. There's an instant need there.
I mean, I'm talking about the average person.
Like a colder environment where there's not an instant demand, then no. Going back to the question that I was talking about previously, so if somebody that's listening and let's just say they think they're one of the colours, what kind of things that they would be struggling with sales right now then? So if you can give them maybe an example of one or two of the profiles.
So if you're a blue, if you're a high, let's say when I talk about it, I say it's the colour you lead with. So if you'll be leading, it doesn't mean you haven't got the other colours, but your highest percentage might be, let's say 80% blue. Yeah. So someone that's 80% view is really very introverted. And they will find it very hard to get out there and promote themselves on social media. Very hard. They won't want to do it. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen. I don't know what to say. Nobody wants to listen to me anyway. Because they are naturally the lurkers of the world, of which social media is perfect for them. So they don't have to say anything. They can just sit there and watch. So their big challenge is to become more yellow. That's their biggest challenge. is to become more yellow, to become more so to stretch into what I call the yellow zone. So 30 minutes and no more. If you are, you know that you are quite introverted, that you don't like putting yourself out there, you find it hard, your challenge is to step into what we call the yellow energy. So think of someone that you know that is bubbly, lively, out there talking, out there promoting themselves. You might be thinking, well, they're over promoting themselves. Well, you don't have to be like that, but you need to take some of those qualities and bring them in to what you do to allow yourself to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be as simple as going to a networking meeting.
Yeah.
And doing more networking. And being okay and comfortable doing your 1-minute pitch. And saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, and practicing it and getting comfortable. So it's about practice, it's about getting out there, it's about doing things. If if you've got a lot of green energy and you're in a therapeutic, you help people, you could be a coach, you could be working as a therapist, you could be in one of the caring professions, you are going to likely want to overgive and be patient, and you won't want to keep discovery calls short. You'll want to have long discovery calls. Long discovery calls will not be good for you.
No.
Free Facebook groups will not be good for you.
Yeah.
Because if you have a free Facebook group and you don't know how to monetize it and keep your boundaries around your time, you will give and give and give and give, and you're going to give all of your knowledge away for nothing.
Yeah.
And so you need to put boundaries around your time. You need to recognize that the value in what you're offering to people, that it has a value, and how you're going to wrap that value up.
Yeah, got it. And how about yellow and red then? Because that's a little bit different.
And red. Well, okay, so I've got a great client who is very yellow and very red, and she is an amazing speaker. She's out there, she's doing this, she's doing that. She's lively, she loves it, she's quick. So when she gets a prospective client who is a bit, I need to think a bit. She's like, oh, I can't be bothered with these people. I can't be bothered with these people that need to take all this time. Why don't they? I said, they are not like you.
Yeah.
That is why. So opposites attract. So whatever colour you are, your opposite will also be attracted to working with you because you have something that they don't have.
Yeah.
So with the yellow, where the yellow's out there and this, that, and the other, the yellow is attracting lots of greens and blues, and greens and blues take longer to make buying decisions.
Definitely, yeah.
So what will happen there is that, if you're yellow, you need to slow down a bit. You need to slow down to the pace of your ideal client and think, okay, where is my buyer in their journey or his journey at the moment? What point are they in the buyer journey? How they might have encountered you 2 or 3 times. Whereas a red or yellow might go, yeah, right, I know I need that. Let's do it.
Quick decision making, right?
Quick decision making.
Yeah, and just because you are a certain way doesn't mean your clients are a certain way, or that they all act the same way. I've just been working on my sales page for a new offer that's going out today as we record this, and we've been talking about that psychology around how it works, or how to lay that sales page out, and what different things but different people will need. People will need some of the detail. Other people just will literally want a button right at the top, read the title, and they were ready to buy. And usually because they might already know me, because they think, actually, that's perfect, that's what I need, I'll buy it straight away, I'm ready to buy. And that would be because they're that kind of person that would do that, and they would do that with anything and everything. But yeah, I'm a little bit more of a careful, I'll take my time. But if I've got the money in the bank and it's something I definitely need and I know the person, then I'll just end up going to buy it. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's it. That's exactly, the lurkers tend to be greens and blues, and the lurkers take, and this is why I say to people, when you follow people up, you need to follow them up more than once or twice. And people used to say to me, really, do I need to follow them up more than once or twice? But I called them or I emailed them, how many times? Once. Do it again and again and again. But not in a pestery way. It's all about scales and timelines.
Yeah, our clients like us too. Like, to be honest, on my evolution financial planning side of my business, I have Katie in my team, and she's my client relationship manager, and she follows up 3 times and leaves them a message, emails them, leaves them a message, so she actually picks up the phone and speaks to them. And after 3 times, the 3rd time she says, look, we're not going to pester you, we're not going to ring you again, we'll leave it with you, but most of them come back and go, oh, no, I'm really sorry, thank you so much for following up. You know, they actually,
they do.
They like it. It's not, and it's, you know, I know it can feel to some people that maybe they're chasing people, but they're not. They're just delivering on a service. They're just helping that person. They've asked them for the help. Unless you say, no, it's not for me, you know, bear in mind, these are clients that have actually contacted us and saying, can I have help, please? It's not like a random, you know, cold calling kind of situation.
No, well, it's not.
There's no harm.
It's what I call reminding and nudging people, because people have very busy lives, and as you quite rightly say, you know, I can count, you know, numerous times I get emails saying, oh, sorry, I've been really, really busy. I did mean to contact you, but, you know, if I didn't follow up that fourth time, I wouldn't have got that email to say,
exactly.
Thanks for the reminder. Actually, I do want to join that program, but can I join it in September, not in June?
Yeah.
So you've got,
and it's building up that interest, isn't it? It's building up that funnel and that pipeline of people. Yeah. So that, you know, so my new program that I'm offering from today, I know that the next time that I offer it, I'll have hopefully even more people interested than I did this time, because it's only the first time I've built this interest in this way. And as I was talking about this morning, the post that you talked about online, there's too much emphasis on how much you sell, and therefore that deems how successful you are. And my post was, I don't care how much I sell. I've got a week and a few days for this program to be opened, and I don't. It's not a respect. What am I trying to say? The outcome of the sales are not a reflection of my value or my worth. And I personally, what I see the biggest issue with sales for a lot of women is that they literally, like you talk about, removing yourself from the process, or removing your personal
themselves. They've been taught to sell themselves, and that's, you know, it's like, you know, yes, you are brand new as such, but if you're taught to sell yourself, it's, you know, unfortunately, it's too integrated into your self-worth. If you don't get those sales, whereas you quite rightly are saying, yeah, I don't care, because at the end of the day, I know how valuable this is. It's nothing to do with me and my value. This is the product. So you've got your, so it's when the product's there, you know, that it's, yeah. And I mean, selling yourself.
But I've also done a lot of work on myself, I will say. I spent years wasting a lot of time. So the awards, if you're on the video, you can see the awards behind me. Those that are on the podcast, you might have seen previous pictures or something. But for a period of time, I went for every single award I could. Did a TEDx talk. I wrote a book. My second book that was out last year was a rewrite of that previous book. And I just had a baby when I'd done that. And I reflected back, and I got to a point, I was like, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel achieving nothing. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? And it was all around my self-worth. And it wasn't proving myself to others. It was proving myself to myself. Because I didn't do well at school. I was never going to aspire to be very much or do very much. And so I just kept sort of, you know, pushing myself, not realizing that's what I was doing. So I did an awful lot on I don't realize it was my self-worth, but I did a lot of work on the baggage, you know, the upbringing, the baggage, the things that have been put on me from a value perspective, and, you know, as a society. And I try not to do this with my kids. You know, my daughter, for example, she's about to go into year 10. The outcome of her assessments at the moment does not deem her worth. I think we teach children at a very young age that their outcome of their results in exams or progress tests or whatever, or playing football, is a reflection of their value. And I think that as a society, we're guilty of doing that. So we do that to ourselves as we become adults. And as we're growing our business, we do it again. And yeah, I've just detached myself from that. And it's actually removed a lot of stress around cash flow in my business, around money management in my business, around, so anything happens, I'm not automatically putting myself down for it, because it's not anything. It is to do with me, but it's not anything to do with me. It is what it is. So you've just got to
exactly. It is what it is. I mean, when you sell professionally, as when sales is your job. As a business owner, sales is part of your job. You know, you're part sales director, ops director, coach delivery, coach, you know, training. You're the whole marketing department, you're the whole lot, aren't you? But when sales is your job, if you have to sell, you're selling a product or service that is apart, not you, because you're not delivering it. And that's the key thing with most online business owners. They are the deliverer of the service, and they get it's very personal to them.
It is personal, isn't it? It's our babies, it's our business. We've spent so much time and effort in bringing it all together.
So it becomes very personal. So you've got to be able to dissociate yourself.
Yeah, which is hard. I've just about managed to do it, but it is very difficult, I must say. Very difficult. Well, I've a really great chat today, Cherie. I really enjoyed it. Any passing comments, thoughts or suggestions that you would like to leave the listeners with?
I think really, I would say to people that there's an awful lot of noise out there online on social media, and most people that we're talking about, I think they'll probably be listening to your podcast, are going to be selling on social. And I think it's just to really keep going, and just to remember sometimes to put yourself out there and put your posts out there, share your offers, share a weekly offer. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Don't buy into you mustn't put sales posts out. And I hear this all the time, that people, don't post 5 times a week a sales post, but make sure you do put your sales offers out there. Be proud about it, be passionate about it, and I would challenge you to do something that you have not been doing that might be holding you back in getting sales in your business. And you'll know what it is. If you're listening, you'll think, yeah, I could be doing this and I'm not doing it. So I challenge you to think about doing one thing that would help you to make yourself more visible and to get more sales. And that would
really,
also
I think that's a really good point. Thank you for I think that's a really good point. I think we're taught a lot on social media, and there's a lot around launching and selling when you're launching, but for people that aren't in a launch process, or they've got a normal conventional everyday, it's okay to have a post a week where you're selling something. You don't have to always be doing pictures of you and the dog or a TikTok doing something silly. You can actually offer and put stuff out there. So I think that's a really great reminder. And so if people want to work with you, Cherie, we're going to be putting in the show notes the links to your website. Is there a particular way that you would suggest people work with you initially?
One of the initial ways is Power of Personality, the introductory session, because that does help underpin my approach to teaching or sharing or coaching anybody on how they can sell more and be more confident in the sales aspects of their business. So that's the Power of Personality. That's a one-off session. Or I do have a group membership, which is a way to come in and learn in a group rather than just learning one-to-one. So it tends to be whatever suits.
Perfect. And that's all on your website, I assume?
Yes, that's on my website.
Yeah. Perfectly. And so that was a good little sales pitch there. It was very eloquently done and didn't feel at all like a car salesman whatsoever, Cherie. So brilliant. Love talking to you today. Thank you for coming in to talk to me about sales. Welcome. And I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone listening.
Thank you.